Hi, my name is John Ellis, and this is a blueprint overview for my feature project. For my feature, I made it so that way the bot doesn't spawn with the jetpack, and the jetpack is now a pickup item. And then I also gave the jetpack a fuel restraint, and then created a fuel pickup blueprint as well. For the jetpack, we used the regular static mesh, and then we created a bounce feature so that way the actor bounces up and down along the z axis, and then said when the player overlaps with the collision, it will be hidden in the game for 5 seconds. For the bounce, all we did was just change the z local offset by 0.1 of sine. For the fuel pickup, we use this as the static mesh, the pipes ring, and we gave this one a rotation and bounce. Everything is exactly the same. When the player overlaps, it sets it hidden. After a 5-second delay, it's no longer hidden. And then the only change here is that we used a sequence and gave it a rotation of 100 times the delta seconds on the x-axis. And then it also bounces along the x-axis because we rotated it straight up and down instead of left and right in the game. Now, for the BP bot, we went ahead and had to change a few things. First changes I made is I changed the thruster max time to 3.5 seconds. Then I also set the jetpack to be hidden at the start of the game. Then for the jetpack use, I created its own input action instead of being tied into the jump input action, which you can see here. And then I added it to the context, or the input context. And then I also gave it a hold element, so that way it would trigger for the whole 3.5 seconds and the player wouldn't be able to decide when it stops. Now, what we did here is we said when we're falling or flying, if the actor is not hidden, then do this once if fuel is not 0. Then we toggled the jetpack, didn't change anything there. And then after 3.5 seconds, the fuel will drain. And then we said if the fuel is not 0, then if the fuel is 0, then we will add a out of fuel text and play a sound to notify the player that they're out of fuel. And then I added this little do once here, so that way the player couldn't trigger the jetpack again until they landed. Then I also added a fuel gauge and an out of fuel text. So with the fuel gauge, it's just a little green bar, just kind of like the similar to health one that we used in week 1. And then we said on fuel change, we set that %. Then we applied that widget to a widget component. And then we said that we want to set the current fuel on that begin play to the max fuel, which is 100. And then we'll update the fuel UI in the widget. And then on fuel drain, we'll take the fuel that's used, subtract it from the current fuel, and then update the fuel UI. And then we also created this get fuel message to be shown whenever the character is out of fuel. And we create a widget component just to put it into the character. Now, I made a few changes to the elevator blueprint that we created in the ILAs. I gave it a sound so that way when it's triggered, it makes a noise when it's going up and down. And then I created a bug fix here because I was running into an issue. So I made it so that way the trigger box lowers into the elevator when you whenever it's going down or up, and then when it reaches the top or bottom, we'll go ahead and raise the trigger box again so it can be used again. For the elevator for the Stacklebot kit, we wanted it to return back down without the player overlapping with the trigger box. So we created a function, or I'm sorry, a custom event that said on component end overlap, we will set the location to the start location. And then it'll allow you to reset the location up. For the spike traps, made quite a few changes here. I changed the spike damage and the damage repeat rate to help with balancing issues. And then I made it so you could lower the spikes. So it'll lower after 30 seconds. I also created a magnetic floor. So I just said whenever the player or BP bot overlaps with it, it can't jump anymore. And then once it's done overlapping, it can jump again. Use that for my spike traps. Well, that is it. Thank you so much for watching.